Welcome on another episode of the Village Boy Podcast. I'm your host, Tres, and today we're talking about the breaking news that Joy Anne Reid, our favorite auntie on the MSDNC, and I mean MS, has been fired. Man, boy, that's a lot of news to break down. Let's go ahead. You should see Joy Anne Reid right there. This in modern era is considered the most racist person on national television. Now it's different if you have people come on your show as guests and they spout racial epithets, they spout racial narratives. It's okay because you're saying you brought somebody on your show. But when you, the host, all you do is attack, attack white people. And I need to say this. Let's say this so that everybody knows. White racism is also not good. This narrative that black people cannot be racist towards white needs to be put to bed. It is totally a possibility. It has given carte blanche to black racists to be openly racist to white people. Racism is bad. White people to black people to white people, any form of racial attack should be disavowed and attacked in the firmest words possible. And so we have Joy Reid here, and we're going to watch a few of her clips so most of you understand some of the things that Auntie here has been saying over the years, and people have been clamoring for her show to be nipped, cut, and put in the trash can. And MSNBC, a white liberal channel, has stood its ground, pushing a black woman out there to say these evil things that she's been saying over the years. Now, you could disagree with somebody. It's okay. America's political landscape allows for people to disagree. But the names that she's been calling people, you cannot even be a black conservative in Joanne Reid's world. She will call you a coon. She'll call you an Uncle Tom. She'll call you a sellout. So conservatives like me would never have been able to have a conversation with Joanne Reid because she would have seen me as a sellout, the enemy. Well, let's go ahead and watch some of the videos that Joy has done over the years.
In America, there's a thing about both white vigilantism and white tears, particularly male white tears. Really white tears in general, because that's what Karens are, right?
Now, I think about this. She's talking about white tears. Now, picture this scenario: a white conservative podcaster comes and black people are going through something. He's making fun of them. It's like black tears. Oh my God, look at black tears. This black women, the Shaquina, the Bonquishas, the Shaquanika, they will shut you down so fast you will not even know what hit you. But she's been allowed to say these things year in, year out. MSNBC stood for this for all these years. MSNBC, MSNDNC is basically letting go of her because her numbers are bad, which means Democrats don't even want to watch these things because this is her base. Black people don't even want to subscribe to her platform. She doesn't have an audience. MSNBC stood for this, supported this, promoted this until the numbers could no longer defend itself. And they decided to part ways. So nobody should be happy that MSNBC did the right thing here. Because if she had the numbers, if people were subscribing to watch this kind of racial narrative aimed at different groups of people, she would still be on air. So MSNBC would have never had a problem with it. MSNBC would have never dialed it back.
They Karen out, and then as soon as they get caught, it's like, Green Waterworks.
Ron DeSantis has been waging a full-scale war against the black past. It's illegal to make white people feel uncomfortable in Florida.
You also have the restrictions in schools over what can be taught about race and gender for fear white children might feel bad when they find out that not all white people in history were heroes.
Do any of you guys trust Uncle Clarence?
These Republicans are dangerous. They're dangerous to our national security because stoking that kind of soft white nationalism eventually leads to the hardcore. From the Tea Party on, they're voting on race. The idea that they can't get whatever job they want, a black person got it, therefore drive all the blacks out of the colleges. They're just voting specifically on racial animus at this stage. It isn't about economics. They want to turn every state into their white Christian nationalist hell. It's DEFCON 1, y'all. Take action and stay woke.
Now, it doesn't end there. She said, stay woke. DEFCON 1. Kanye West got demonetized, flagged, branded. I mean, Kanye got his own issues, but he got demonetized because he said DEFCON 2, DEFCON 3. I can't even remember what he said, but he got attacked for something like that. But Joy Reid was on air on prime time, 7 p.m. Eastern, prime time. This is what MSNBC wanted the American audience to consume. This is what MSNBC wanted to put out there, the division, stoking this division among the different people in America, calling Republicans evil. I have been calling for this woman to get fired because it was unbearable. And I was shocked at how MSNBC stood by her side. Now let's watch this video. This is her with Jan. Watch Jan's facial reactions at some of the things Joy Reid is saying. Look at the reaction.
Right? I mean, Donald Trump isn't just a doddering fool who happens to be racist. He's a calculated person who is not trying
Look
to
at that
grow
face that she's
his
making.
vote share. He's trying to speak into the id of a particular kind of voter.
They had to cut her off because she was like, whoa, with her facial reactions, right? Jen, they had to cut her off and put this solo screen because the facial reaction was telling a whole different story.
About when he says we have to call out Detroit, Philly, and Atlanta. We have to go into Philly, Detroit, Atlanta. He lost Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Michigan in 2020, which is how he lost the election. It's why he's under indictment for attempting to steal those races. What he's telling his voters, his small, his share of extreme MAGA voters, these blacks are stealing the election. Black Haitians are violent cannibals. Black people are the enemy. Black people are going to be responsible if and when I lose, and you are permitted through my language to do violence to them if necessary to stop another peaceful transfer of power.
Now think about what she just said. Trump never said any such thing. Trump had a campaign rally in New York, and where he asked black people, what do you have to lose? You've been voting the Democrat Party for 70 years. They've never come to your rescue. Your schools are crap. Your education system, your kids cannot read. Your kids cannot do math. What do you have to lose? Where on earth does Joy Reid come up with this conversation that black people are going to be the reason why Trump did not win the election, which he ended up winning by a lot? And black men did vote for him. Black women, on the other hand, like Joy Reid preached to them, they voted for Kamala, 93%. And so this is the narrative that this woman has spewed for at least 5 years on air. Think about being a follower of hers. You hear this every day, This is the news you consume between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. Imagine what that does to your psyche. There was one time she got on air and said, after the elections, if you find out that your family voted for Trump, it's okay to cut them off. Joy Reid said that. Cut off your family member that voted for Donald Trump. MSNBC stood by this rhetoric for 5 years, 6 years, for as long as she's been on air. Right? And then her goodbye speech, we're gonna watch that here shortly. She does her goodbye speech and she's shedding out crocodile tears. Does anybody really care? Nobody should be able to celebrate the demise. I'm not one to celebrate the demise of people, but I'm happy that somebody who is this bitter, this angry, this broken finally got off air. They didn't replace her with a lot different. Michael Steele, a former Republican, Simone Sanders, and Menendez, but they're not as bad because Joanne Reid was horrible, right? And I don't understand what solution she was trying, what problems she was trying to solve with that rhetoric. Because it's once you're on air and you have a platform, you identify a problem, you talk about the problem, and ultimately you come up with a solution that's going to work to unite America. This division that she was stoking, if the Democrats had won, would they not govern the rest of America? Would they not try to rally and bring the rest of America, this evil right side of America, Joanne Reid? Let's go ahead and watch her farewell speech as she sheds crocodile tears and she's crying about how she tried to be good. No, you weren't good. You're not a good person, Joanne Reid.
My show had value, and that I'm sorry
There goes the
that
crocodile tears.
that what I was doing had value. I try not to cry on TV, and I take this is kind of like me on TV, so I apologize. And that it kind of and then it mattered. I see Karen is there, and she's been texting me as well. And so what I will just say is that in the end, thank you. Um, where I land is that the moment that of guilt that I felt that I went hard on so many issues, whether it was the Black Lives Matter issues of a young baby or a
And we found out that the Black Lives Matter movement was just a fun a scheme to siphon funds from black people. Because whatever came out of the Black Lives Movement, Joanne Reid, whatever came out of that, did that build the black community that you wanted? Did that establish a black economy that everybody wanted? No. The Black Lives Movement burned down the black community, destroyed black neighborhoods. Right. But the organizers of the Black Lives Movement got rich, they got wealthy, right? So Joanne Reid, you didn't provide value. You shared hatred, bitterness, disdain among Americans. That's what you shared.
when we opened up people's eyes to the fact that Asian Americans were being targeted and not just black folks that or went hard for immigrants who've done nothing but come to this country like my parents.
But Joanne Reid, Asian Americans were the first people to were one of the people that brought an end to affirmative action. So is this selective when Asian works for you and when Asians don't work for you? Because Asians were the people that went took the affirmative action to court because it took them out of contentions. They were not being selected to go into these Ivy League schools at the expense, and you are a recipient of affirmative action. And we see that now. We see the outcome of affirmative action because you were never happy. You didn't seem fully satisfied on the platform that was given to you. You let yourself be used by white liberals to sow hatred in America, Joanne Reid. And you're about to talk about your parents coming from the Congo, which means you're first generation American. And you have this much hatred being a first generation American, Joanne Reid. You do not have the descendants of slave blood in your body, Joanne Reid, to pick up this fight and fight as if that is your lineage. You were supposed to be talking the benefits of black progression, how blacks are going to be able to be part of this narrative, this discourse of America. But they used you, the daughter of an African immigrant, to spew hate, Now that the right is going to look at you and say, yes, this is what the Africans are bringing to America. You didn't represent us, Joanne Reid. I don't want to talk about hatred of any community. I want America to be one. I want America to be strong. And I want America to be prosperous for all of us, Joanne Reid. There are no winners and losers in America. It's all for the purpose, benefit, and growth of America. So as I pat you farewell, Joanne Reid, I'm happy. And now you could go do your podcast and have your little a group of listeners listen to you. You could still share your hatred on there, but it's not going to be on national TV, Joanne Reid. And so I'm very happy to see you go. Like I said, I am not one to support the firing of people, but I think you were deserving of this firing and you should have been taken off air at least 3 years ago. So I wish you all the best, my Congolese sister. I wish you farewell. And I hope that you have an enlightenment. I hope that your heart is touched where you can come back and be a better version of yourself. And you could drive your democratic agenda, but you could drive it from a place where we're trying to build America and we can work together, left and right, and build the America for our children. I'll let you finish your cry before I conclude.
Parents did and try to make a life and defended them, um, or whether we've talked about what the president is doing that is subversive to the Constitution, that is injurious to our liberty, defending books that people find inconvenient, that Nicole Hannah Jones put into our spirit, that we need to understand 1619 as the real founding of this country, whether it's talking about any of these issues, and yes, whether it's talking about Gaza and the fact that we as the American people have a right to object, to little babies being bombed, and where I come.
And I would agree with you, Joanne Reid. You see, we can find common grounds on issues, Joanne Reid. We can find common grounds on I could never support 40,000 people being killed on Gaza. I could never bring myself to support that, as conservative as I am. I also can never be a blind follower of a country, an independent country like Israel. I could never. They're an independent country. I could agree with them. I could disagree with them. So there are common grounds for me and you to agree. But when you call me a coon, when you call everybody a name because you don't get what you want, Joanne Reid, that's part of the problems. That is part. You are not more American than the conservatives are more American. We're all Americans. We love America. And yes, Joanne Reid, some books should be banned. Banned completely. There's no place for children to be learning some of the things your radical progressive side is pushing down on those children. They're not going to make them compete with the likes of China. They're not going to make them compete with the likes of Brazil. They're not going to make them compete with the likes of the Canadian kids next door because our kids are going to be focused on the wrong things. So yes, Joanne Reid, the things where we can agree on, and by all accounts, we disagree on a lot. But we don't have to hate each other. We don't have to call each other names. So I wish you all the best. And like Don Lennon, I hope you're obscured to some back podcast that nobody watches, and you have some time to reflect for yourself. Thank you. That's all for this edition of the Village Boy podcast. We wanted to address the Joanne Reid firing. And like, we're not giving kudos to MSNBC. They just fired her because her numbers were no longer productive, which means if the numbers were still good, MSNBC would have had this lady on air still having this rhetoric. And it's also sad that they firing Joanne Reid and keeping on Rachel Maddow, who appears like once every month or once every 2 weeks, and just it's just another confused cooker for Cocoa Puffs. And they're keeping her and paying her the most money. Rachel Maddow needs to go off air as well, but that's not gonna happen, and we know why. And like I said, it's been the Village Boy. Like, subscribe, let's have this conversation. If you disagree, put the comment in the comment section and let's continue to have the conversation.